Well, I have 5 different varieties of persimmon trees. 3 of them have fruit on them, and I'm gonna show them to you right now. What I call Persimmonville. This is a Eureka persimmon. It's the one I showed in the opening, and it has got, we've already pulled a bunch, probably a couple of dozen, and it's still got just clusters and clusters of fruit that is finally ripe. There are 2 different kinds of persimmons, a lot of different varieties, but 2 different kinds of persimmons, and that's an astringent variety and a non-astringent. Now there's Asian persimmons and there's American persimmons and a lot of different other things, but seeded and seedless and several different ways to go as far as buying a persimmon plant. But this one is an astringent persimmon, and by that I mean it has an astringent taste. It's not bitter, it's not tart. Astringent is a whole new animal. It makes your mouth just pucker up. It just, I don't know, I can't explain it if you don't know what astringent is. But an astringent tree really needs, or at least this one does, this is a Eureka, and this one really needs a good freeze on it just once before it will start ripening and softening. This tree, this fruit is astringent tasting until it starts getting soft, and to get soft it really needs to have a freeze on it. Now I did an experiment on it the other day. I took one that was still pretty hard before we got a freeze and put it in the freezer, set a timer, put it in the freezer for about an hour and a half, and it the next day it was soft. It was ripe. So that's one good way to do it. Once they get ripe, once you're into the fall, but you haven't had that first freeze that would ripen an astringent persimmon, you can ripen it yourself by putting it in a freezer and ripening it yourself that way. So this is a Fuyu, and this tree is probably it's several years old. I've had it about 2 or 3 years. This replaced the persimmon tree that I had that broke when I tried to propagate a persimmon. It got loaded down, looked just like the other one, that Eureka I first showed you in the opening, and it just broke and just ruined the tree. So this is a Fuyu, and Fuyu is a non-astringent, and these are hard to pull off. I don't know if you ever tried to pull off you almost have to cut it off because the top of it, it's got that little bud, bloom end, whatever that's called right there. And when you pull it off, it pulls that whole thing off. But it will eat, even though this has already had a frost on it. That's just, they get black on certain spots. It doesn't hurt anything. This one, even before we got the frost or the freeze, it was I was eating some of it, so it's pretty good. Eats about like an apple, crisp. Skin's a little thicker probably than an apple, and it's sweet. It's not as sweet as they get when they're real mushy and soft, but then at that point, I don't particularly like to bite into it because it's just slimy. But this is a Fuyu, so I've got probably a 4 or 5 year old Fuyu that I've had 2 or 3 years, and then I've got a Fuyu over here, but this is a giant Fuyu. Now this is a first year for me tree. It's a giant Fuyu, and it came from Bob Wells Nursery. All these trees came from Bob Wells Nursery. Some beautiful stock. And it's probably because this is the first year this has ever fruited. But, this is supposed to be a giant Fuyu, and it didn't get any bigger than the other Fuyu. So, it is kind of soft. So it's probably a little sweeter. It had all 4 or 5 persimmons on it, and I guess something's probably already come and got them, raccoon or something. I don't know why they're not getting the other ones, but I'm still chewing persimmon, excuse me. So I assume, I suspect next year this one will start getting real big. The tree will get bigger, the fruit will get bigger, and because it's again a giant Fuyu, it's supposed to get bigger. I don't know how much bigger than a regular Fuyu, but bigger. This over here is another Fuyu. So I've got 2 Fuyus, one giant Fuyu, and this one had 2 or 3 fruit on it, and they have either fallen off or I've gotten them. I'm not sure. But this one struggled at first, and I thought it was because it was at the end of the water line there, the drip irrigation line. I thought maybe it was because of that. It wasn't getting water, but I would check it, and it was getting plenty of water. So for whatever reason, I had to kill an ant bed in here, and it could be the ant bed got up in it, the roots and stuff. But this one struggled for a little while, but it has really grown a lot since I planted it. All these were planted in January. And so let me show you, I got 2 more persimmon trees. Let me show you those. Now this one in the red tub is a chocolate persimmon. And they say it tastes like chocolate. I got had 2 or 3 on here. The leaves have died from that frost or freeze. We didn't just get a frost, we got a hard freeze, 28 degrees. But it's grown quite a bit. I see a lot of new growth on it, and the only reason I have the chocolate is because I got another one I'm fixing to show you in a minute, that this one was supposed to be the only thing that would pollinate it. So I went ahead and got a chocolate, even though I really was not wanting another persimmon tree. But this is a chocolate persimmon in a container. This one will go in the ground this winter. I'll put this in the ground this winter, probably. So this one here is called a cheesecake, and my understanding is, reading up on it, it tastes just like cheesecake. That's one reason I got it. I like me some cheesecake. Anyway, this is a replacement tree though. I got a tree from Bob Wells in January when I planted all these other trees. Now the big tree there, that tree's 5, 6 years old or more. But all these new trees, and he told me, I went back, it just never budded out, it was just not right. And he said persimmons are really hard to root, which kind of explains why most people have trouble propagating them. But I went back and got another tree, and this time I got a 10-gallon. I had originally gotten 5 gallons. This time I got a 10-gallon. He told me that the root system really wouldn't hurt for the root system to have some time to develop in that pot, and told me just leave it in the pot this year. So what I did was just kind of bury it in this mulch. I've mulched all my fruit trees like this, and I just buried the pot about halfway down in that mulch, and it did great. Didn't fruit, but that's okay. It's young, but I think I'm pretty sure it will next year because it's got some growth on it now. It wasn't a whole lot when I put it in the ground, top growth wise, but I'm hoping it's got a real good root system. I'll find out when I transplant it, because this later on this year or earlier, like January, February, March, I'll put it in the ground. I'll just dig this out and put it down, take the pot off of it, put it down in the ground. So that is a cheesecake. So I've got cheesecake, chocolate, that are supposedly pollinators for each other. I've got a Fuyu and another Fuyu and a giant Fuyu, and then I've got this Eureka. That leads us back to the Eureka, which again, I've been meaning for a month now to prop that limb up because I'm afraid it's going to break. So I've been pulling some off of it, and it's still just got, I don't know, was that 20? Probably, maybe 25 on that one limb. It's just amazing. You wouldn't think that they cluster like that, but they sure do. So that's my persimmon farm here at Persimmonville, USA. And it's just, they're doing great. So if you need some good trees, I heartily recommend Bob Wells Nursery. I've got a link below the video where it says show more. And I think he still has honoring a discount code TP2 for Texas Prepper 2. TP2 will get you 10% off, I think. I'm pretty sure he is still doing that, and I haven't talked to him in a little while. But just this again is a Eureka. This is the astringent one. I don't think I want another astringent one because there's such a narrow window when they are edible. They're not edible till they get a freeze on them, and then after they get a freeze on them, they start turning mushy pretty quick. So I don't, I'm not crazy about the astringent variety. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's one reason I've got these other varieties. It may be fine for you. It's just, I don't know. It's just me, probably. But this is a beautiful example of what a persimmon looks like when it's loaded down, and it is loaded down. All right, we have talked about persimmons till my mouth's about puckered up. That's because it's astringent. Okay, persimmon 101. They're tasty, they're sweet. One of the sweetest fruits you'll ever eat is a persimmon. When it's ripe, when it's ready, it is super, super sweet. If you don't know what they taste like, go down to kind of a fancy schmancy store near you that has a good produce department and see if you can find persimmon. In fact, this is the time of year when they would be fresh, not in cold storage or something. They'll be coming out of the farm this time of year. So grab your persimmon, try it. If you like it, write down what variety it is, do some research on it, and call Bob Wells. Visit them online, bobwellsnursery.com, and get you some persimmons. All right, we're gone.